Hello, respected viewers. Here I am in Derrynane House, which is the home of Daniel O'Connell, the famous Irish politician. The house was built in 1702 by his grandfather, but extensively rebuilt by him. So Daniel O'Connell, he inherited it from his uncle Maurice Hunting Cap O'Connell, who had no children, who died in 1825. Donald Moore was Daniel O'Connell's grandfather, the one who built it. It's one of the largest houses in the area. Here we are in Kerry, just outside Derrynane, or Daniel, the place of Daniel, as it's called. So he added the south and east wings. Some of it was abolished in the 1950s. Anyway, so the O'Connell family, this is it from the outside, they owned it till about 1958. They gave it to the government in 1967. It was opened as a tourist attraction by the president at the time, Abbey de Valera. So here we are in the dining room. Look, they could do with a bit of tarting up there. There's a bit of damp. So we're on the Inchiquin Peninsula near the McGillicuddy Mountains. There's a ruined abbey not far away. Derrynane House, sometimes known as Derrynane Abbey. Look at that, very fine oil painting. Very ornate frame with this sort of shell motif. So yeah, the Kenmare River is hard by. It's often called Derrynane Abbey because there's a chapel in it. Obviously, the sea is just beyond where you can see. What looks like a golf links. Can't quite make out the water from this angle. So the O'Connell family were Catholics, and this time of the penal laws, the Catholic majority in Ireland were heavily discriminated against. But they'd managed to make their money through smuggling. So not things were contraband, but just not paying tax on items that were imported. And because it was gavel-kind inheritance for Catholics, that meant that the property was spread. It was divided equally between the sons, so that a wealthy landowning family, each of them would end up having very little. But on the other hand, if you practice primogeniture, then yes, the eldest son gets a lot, but the younger ones get nothing. They have to go off and do other jobs. But anyway, they had a sympathetic Church of Ireland friends who pretended to own the property, legally owned them, but in reality, the O'Connells were able to own it. So look here, okay, some children playing, and I can't remember who's who. So Daniel O'Connell, he got married, and he and his good wife were blessed with 12 children, 5 of whom died in infancy, which was not unusual for the time, even for an affluent family. So he was a native speaker of Irish, spoke perfect English, and he later added French. So he was schooled in France, was there at the time of the French Revolution, which left him with a horror of violence. So he was largely a pacifist. He qualified as a barrister because by the end of the 18th century, 1793, the Catholic Relief Act, some of the discrimination in law against Roman Catholics was abolished. So, for example, we could study at Trinity College Dublin, Ireland's only university. So most people were around here were very poor. It's not terribly fertile soil. It's very thin and stony. Okay, so here we are in the drawing room, and this chair was given to him when he was in Richmond Penitentiary in Dublin, together with the poof for putting your feet on. And there you see you've got the Wolfhounds, Irish Round Towers, the Harp of Ireland, the Stag, who look at the laurel wreath, and then Ceann agus, how do you say that? Neark, which is strong and something. Wisdom and strength, yeah, that's it, in Irish. Okay, so anyway, he was practiced. He famously defended in the case of the Coleen Bawn, that girl who was murdered near Bree, County Limerick. You can see the sea rolling in behind over there, okay. So, yeah, that's the Kenmare River. And there's another little bit of this Kerry Peninsula, Inchiquin Peninsula. You can't see but Bearer, but that's beyond that headland. And then he got into politics, got the repeal movement going for repeal of the Act of Union. Well, first of all, he wanted Catholic Emancipation, so it's founded the Catholic Association with a very low membership fee to make it a mass movement so that ordinary people would feel that they had ownership, that they paid something for it, and monster meetings. It was before an age of mass politics. Newspapers had got going, the railways started in 1825, people and newspapers could move around, there was increasing literacy. I mean, not everyone went to school till 1870, so people would be engaged in this and think their lives would improve. Previously, politics had been for the elite until 1832, and about 5% of the population was permitted to vote. And look at some of these snuff boxes here various presents he got for things. The piano, apparently he was tone deaf. He enjoyed music. Thomas More, oh look, they call him the Liberator, presented to the Liberator shortly after bringing nuns here in 1840, yeah. So he helped bring the Presentation Sisters to Cahirsiveen, and he was born just outside Cahirsiveen, County Kerry. So the Presentation Sisters set up a girls' school. Anyway, Thomas More was the Irish poet of the day, and his poems, Irish Melodies, were wildly popular, and those were set to music, and he would hear people singing those and playing music. Okay, sorry, it's free today, usually you have to pay. Here's this death scene of piety. So he had moments of doubt in his life, religious doubt, but by 1816 was a zealous Catholic. So that's why he had the chapel built here. And fast forward, when his political campaign for repeal was failing, he was travelling to Rome to be blessed by Pope Pius IX, but didn't quite make it. And here is the death scene, okay? Very moving. So he died at the Hotel Faber in Genoa, 15th of May, 1847. Okay. And then the bed was passed around by various people in a Catholic seminary for a while, and then given to the house here. He didn't die in the house. And here's another example of the death scene with the priests performing the last rites, extreme unction. Okay, and you see the crucifix and candles on the bedside table. And who are these? Oh, like the angels, who said the risen Lord in this portrait, a portrait within a portrait. Okay, what else about Daniel O'Connell? So, then he got Catholic Emancipation passed, which is to say there was not to be discrimination against Catholics. Now, the only offices that were open to us was it Prime Minister, something like that, or Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, sometimes called the Viceroy. And the main street in Dublin, Sackville Street, was commonly called O'Connell Street in the late 19th century when his statue went up there, officially renamed O'Connell Street in the 1920s. It had been known as O'Connell Street for decades before that because of this, Sackville being the surname of one of the Viceroys of Ireland. What else about Daniel O'Connell? The Liberator, as he's commonly called. So the rule was if you wanted to join the UK Parliament as an MP, you had to swear an oath acknowledging the monarch as being the head of the church. And of course, as a Catholic in good conscience couldn't do that because the Pope is the head of the church. So some Catholics have been given the papal dispensation to say it anyway, but he wouldn't do so. The law didn't actually say, as such, Catholics aren't allowed into Parliament. Here we are, Daniel O'Connell, tall, slightly round-faced man addressing these public meetings. So he's a magnificent rhetor. No public address system. Those days had to be able to broadcast his voice, travelling all around Ireland. But he was elected MP for County Clare. William Vesey FitzGerald was the previous Member of Parliament, a Protestant, but he was promoted to the cabinet. And if you're promoted to the cabinet, you had to subject yourself to the electorate again. But Daniel O'Connell won, but then he was disbarred because he refused to take the oath, recognising the monarch, the United Kingdom, so that's Ireland and Great Britain, as head of the church. Therefore, Vesey FitzGerald got the seat despite getting fewer votes. And so I'm not sure how it was held 3 times, and O'Connell kept winning, and there was rising unrest. And then the Duke of Wellington was Prime Minister, but he backed down. He previously been against Catholic Emancipation, but he finally agreed to it, writing to Sir Robert Peel that he thought that, who was Chief Secretary for Ireland, that whilst Catholic Emancipation was dangerous, refusing it was even more dangerous. There could be an insurrection. So it was granted, so he entered Parliament. And that was the Repeal Association. The Repeal Association was then founded, which is to say repeal the Act of Union, establish an Irish Parliament again, though within the United Kingdom. He didn't want a republic. He to say repeal and no separation, so not to completely separate from Great Britain. Oh, look, Robert Emmet's gun. Okay, so he did not approve of the use of force like that. But the Repeal Association was going, it sometimes was outlawed. It then refounded itself with a slightly different name, held huge meetings. There's one due to be held at Clontarf in Dublin, which was where Brian Boru had defeated the Danes. There were going to be resonances between that and our position within the United Kingdom, that he backed down and he cancelled it on government orders. But he was imprisoned anyway. Some people felt he was rather feeble, should have gone ahead. By this time he was ailing, and he was yesterday's man. And Young Ireland we founded, which is an ultra-nationalist organisation dedicated to use of physical force to completely separate us from Great Britain. It was a time of romantic nationalism in other places like young Germany, young Poland, young Italy, even in England, young England, even though the United Kingdom didn't feel itself to be ruled by another country. All right, so that's enough about Daniel O'Connell. Please come here. And his body was brought back to Dublin, buried in Glasnevin Cemetery, the major cemetery in Ireland, under a huge Irish round tower. So the Liberator, who was known as. There's more to see in Derrynane House. Thanks for watching the video.